Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline at PixieDustPhD. Pretty recently, my partner and I did an add-on contract at villas at Disneyland Hotel, so our first direct DVC purchase through Disney. Overall, it's very exciting. I'm really excited about this new home resort for us and the additional points. Previously on the channel, I went over more objectively the process of executing this contract, making this purchase. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you check that out first because these two videos are quite intertwined. To sum that video up super briefly though, essentially I did a prep call, so I called in about a week before just to get any details down. We executed the contract, made our first payment on May 2nd, and then 5 days later we ended up doing a contract addendum for Magical Beginnings promotion. I tried to keep most of my opinions out of that video and make that pretty straightforward just about the process in case folks were interested in buying directly through DVC, what that really looked like. And at the end of the day, we got our contract, so hooray, but it was not the smoothest sailing, and I learned that the guide that you're assigned matters so much, and I think the guide quality is incredibly variable. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your support, and I'm super enjoying this process of sharing our time purchasing a Villas at Disneyland Hotel DVC contract with you. Thanks to everyone who has already liked the video and subscribed to the channel. If you are new around here, these are free things you can do to help me out so much, and I would extra appreciate it. Before we really get into it, I want to give just a brief warning. This is going to come off kind of whiny. I'm pretty annoyed. I'm pretty frustrated. I had not the best experience. I generally strive for this channel to have a pretty neutral tone. I don't think there's a ton of point in super praising a Fortune 500 company when there's certainly a lot of things they could be doing better, but I also don't think it's worth getting so bogged down in all those things that they could be doing better and being super negative all the time. So I strive for neutrality. This video is not going to be that though. Particularly if you have this video on in common space and you have littles around, maybe they don't want to hear this, maybe this is not the best tone to be exposing them to, so just a heads up. I also personally am a big believer that event session is great for the soul. I'm the kind of person that needs to whine once or twice, get it out of me, and then we can move on. But all right, if you're moving forward, I assume we're all on the same page. This is going to come off a little bit whiny. I'm definitely going to be complaining. And as you may be able to tell from the title card, a lot of this is about the guide. I was assigned a guide at random, and our first call during that prep call I made was pretty good. He told me he had over 8 years of experience with Disney Vacation Club, so that gave me a lot of confidence in him. And honestly, the call was lovely enough. He was nice to talk to. He answered my questions. I felt like we were off to a really good start when I called in about a week prior before sales started. Except we had one issue, which if you tuned into the channel before, you are probably already aware of this. He was really insistent that we had to buy at least 100 points to start qualifying for membership extras. My understanding for the past 7 or 8 years, or however long I've been looking into DVC, is that to qualify for membership benefits, you do have to meet the minimum threshold, which right now is 150 direct points, but you can slice that and dice that any way you want. So him being very insistent that we had to start with 100 points was shocking to me. It was news to me. He said it was only a couple months old. But again, I was meeting this person for the first time. They said they had 8 years of experience with DVC. They said this is exactly what their leader said. Okay. I definitely pressed him on this. We went around in circles a few times. I asked if this was relevant for existing members, all that kind of stuff. He was very sure. I spent a few days digging through the Disney Vacation Club website, trying to find every little bit of fine print I could, and I could not corroborate what he was saying. I then made that prior video on the channel. Thank you so much if you watched that and provided input. It is annoying to me, but the truth is sometimes crowdsourced information is our best way to figure out what is true and what is not. From feedback on that video and social media posts on the same topic for the following few days after I posted it, there really were only 2 people who strongly said they spoke to their guide very recently and this is not a thing and what I was told was false. A lot of people said, oh, they don't believe it or that doesn't sound right, which I totally agreed with, which is why I posted in the first place. But yeah, not too many people could actually say, I spoke to my guide and they said this is not a thing. But there were enough people and I couldn't find evidence of this anywhere, so I was getting really suspicious and annoyed. I then emailed my guide, reiterated my understanding of our conversation with this policy, and asked to see the policy in writing. He said that the guides and the member services cast members represent their policy. It is their job to communicate it. It's not written down anywhere, which I found extremely difficult to believe and a very unsatisfactory answer, to be frank. I went online and chatted member services about this. I said, here's what my guide said. I haven't been able to find evidence of this. Can you let me know? They were not able to confirm or deny, which I thought was odd. Beyond the chat box then, I actually called the general member services line and asked about the same thing. Here's what my guide said. Can you confirm or deny? The first 80% of that conversation, that person was like, yeah, it has to be 100 points. But then they put me on hold, presumably went to speak to their leader or someone else on the team, came back, and again, were not able to confirm or deny. I specifically asked if there was a policy shop, someone in that team that I could speak to. Seems like that's not a thing. I bet it is a thing, they just don't want people talking to them. But this is now many points of confusion, at least 3 separate cast members in DVC who aren't really sure, if we're being honest. So I called my guy back and let him know that no one can corroborate what he's saying. Once again, he very confidently says he's sure. But I pushed and pushed, and he said he would call a back office to double check. When he called me back later that day, he reiterated that what he had told me about this 100-point minimum buy-in to start qualifying for membership extras is what his leader told him and their whole team. But then he said it was definitely true for new members, and immediately my brain went, aha! Which is annoying because I asked if this was applicable to existing members to begin with. So I pushed him further, saying that I'm not a new member, I'm an existing member in good standing. I understand that there are minimum buy-ins, but that minimum is not 100 for existing members. Okay, he says he's gonna talk to some other people and call back. He does, says he's likely mistaken. Cool. He did apologize, but this is a pretty huge thing to get wrong if you ask me. So that was already a lot, and I was already considering changing guides, honestly. But we did do that initial prep call in which he did answer my questions, and other than this 100-point minimum buy-in mix-up, he did a perfectly fine job. So I know they make commission. I was like, well, I've already used some of his time. We'll just go ahead and purchase. I also was already on his callback list for May 2nd. So, okay, fine. Moving on to May 2nd, during the purchase call. Overall, it was fine. Honestly, it was just kind of sloppy. And I get that they're probably dealing with a huge amount of volume. But again, for a purchase that's tens of thousands of dollars and someone with supposedly 8+ years of experience, I kind of just expect more. I personally work in a job that has a decently large client relations component. And if I was as sloppy with a $30,000 purchase as he was, I'd probably be fired, honestly. So let's give some sloppy examples here. Credit cards, how we were paying. I had already confirmed during my prep call that we could pay on multiple credit cards, no problem. When we got to the payment portion of the call on May 2nd, I said, I want to make 4 payments across 3 credit cards. He said, great, no problem. He took the first credit card number down and the amount that I wanted to pay, that would be our first payment on May 2nd. He did not ask for the expiration date or any other details. I thought that was a bit weird, but whatever. For our next payment, I asked to charge that same credit card again, so he already has the credit card number. He took the amount I wanted to charge as well as the date I wanted that charge to hit. Cool. So we've covered 1 credit card and 2 payments now. Now we're moving on to the second credit card. So I give him that credit card number and then he asks for the expiration. I give him the expiration and he very quickly moves on away from payments. He starts telling me about what he considers relevant policies like the 11-month booking window for home resort priority. I interrupted him saying we aren't done with payments. He's very confused. He assumed I wanted the remaining balance on that second credit card, even though to start this conversation, I said I would like to use 3 credit cards and 4 payments. And we've only gotten through 2 credit cards and 3 payments. So I clarify, I give him the 3rd credit card and the charge date. That will be the remainder of the balance. I then also prompt him that he did not take the expiration for my first credit card, which honestly he didn't believe at first, but I told him to double check and he was like, oh yeah, right, okay, what's the expiration? So, okay, it's really not that big of a deal, fine, whatever, just general slaps, but like, again, it's a $30,000 purchase, so maybe try a little harder. Also, if you watched that earlier video where I was covering the process of buying this contract, you may note that at some point during this first purchase call, I asked for the total amount and he couldn't provide it. So, he hung up, calculated stuff and called back. And in that callback is when he asked about our marital status for the deed. I am very certain he should have asked for that during this first call when we were setting the contract up to begin with. Lucky for me, I guess we were planning on speaking again anyway, but again, just a little sloppy. All right, we finally have all the payments set up correctly and he does have all the information he needs to execute the contract. So he starts that process and he tells me that the QA team is going to call me. He says, once my partner and I sign the contract, they are going to call to ensure that I understand all the relevant policies before DVC signs off on the contract. He says as part of this process to make sure that the QA team's job is as easy as it can be, the guides are supposed to go over relevant policies with the purchasers. Fine, makes sense to me. I'll sit here and listen to the spiel. So he reviews the 7-month versus 11-month booking window. Again, I think for the 3rd time at this point. And then he also tells me that annual dues are going to be due every year. He did not clarify though that this was calendar year, not use year, which I think is an important point for new purchasers, but whatever. That was it. That was all the relevant policies he felt like he needed to cover. He did not ever tell me a lick about resale restrictions, which I'm not sure how you would find out if you weren't super plugged into DVC, like dvcnews.com or forums, or you're reading the contract, but at this point in time, I haven't even seen a contract. So yeah, nothing about resale restrictions, which to me seems like the biggest relevant policy that you should be telling folks. He also told me nothing about the expiration of the contract and nothing about the transient taxes for when we actually stay at villas at Disneyland Hotel. I personally had prompted a conversation about transient taxes during our prep call. I don't know if he remembered that or not, but I was aware of it. I'm not sure that everyone buying will be though. But here's an interesting part. The QA team never called. I don't actually know if the QA team is supposed to call or if this is another thing that my guide was totally misinformed about. I did confirm with a separate guide though that our contract is fully executed. DVC signed it, so we're good to go. I don't think I ever have to speak to someone on the QA team. I don't know if this is a practice they normally do when they're less busy. Very unclear all around. And like I previously mentioned, my guide never mentioned any aspect of the total price. I said I want 150 points. He said, great, thanks. Let's take your credit card information down. He never gave me the total price for the 150 points in general. He never gave me the total price for the 150 points minus the incentive that we were getting. And he definitely did not want to give me the total price with the closing costs included. As you know, though, I did ask for the total price with the closing costs because I genuinely think that is fair information for me to know before you send me a contract. I also think it's really important to ensure that whatever I'm being told is what I'm paying is what's on the contract. So if I'm never being told an amount, all I have to go off of is what is listed on the contract. I don't know, let me know in the comments down below if you think this is unreasonable. Personally, I feel like telling folks their purchase price should be standard practice. And personally, I really think that the DVC guide should be empowered with a really quick tool to calculate closing costs. I understand that it depends on if you're financing or if you're paying in cash and then how many points, blah, 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 but like, it shouldn't be that hard for them just to type a few numbers into a preset Excel spreadsheet, for example, and then come out with a closing cost number. I don't know if something like this does exist at DVC and he just didn't want to use it while we were on the phone, or if it actually doesn't exist. It just seems like a thing that should be very, very quick to do. That was all the prep call as well as the actual purchasing call on May 2nd, but the saga continues. As I mentioned in the prior video, we ended up adding the Magical Beginnings promotion. The guide I was assigned never said a word about Magical Beginnings, not in our prep call, not during the purchase call. If it were not for dvcnews.com, I never would have found out about this. So thanks so much to them, super appreciate your diligent reporting. And eventually we were able to have another guide retroactively apply this to our contract, but it was a headache for sure. For those who don't know, Magical Beginnings is a promotion where you can effectively sell back your first use year's worth of points. When I was purchasing, you had to directly buy 150 points to qualify, but they were giving you back $22 a point. For me, for a 150 point contract, that was over $3,000 in savings. We have no real immediate need for these August 2023 points, so yes, I would like that promotion. But it had been several days, right? We signed our contract on May 2nd, and I didn't learn about this till May 7th. In the interim, our Villas at Disneyland Hotel points were loaded to our account. So we decided to tack on one extra day at Walt Disney World for our upcoming trip later this year. I don't have enough points for my Bay Lake Tower contract to cover that one extra night, so we used the 2023 points from Villas at Disneyland Hotel. Again, this was before I knew about Magical Beginnings. In principle, Magical Beginnings takes away all of your 2023 use year points, so I shouldn't have any of those left, but I certainly would be able to borrow from my 2024 VDH points in order to cover this one night. But because Magical Beginnings was not integrated into my contract to begin with, I did have 2023 points at the time, so our one night is covered from 2023 Villas at Disneyland Hotel points, but I'm selling those back, so I need it to be 2024 points. I hope that's clear. There's definitely a dilemma here. I want to keep this one night that I added, but there's no way for me to switch the points from 2023 points to 2024 points. The way the system works is that if you have points in your current use year, you have to use all those up before you're allowed to borrow points. And while in principle I had points in my current use year, they were loaded to my account, I knew that I was going to sell them back from Magical Beginnings, so that should be zero, and I just want to borrow my 2024 points for this. But anyway, all this happened on one of my guide's days off. I totally respect time off, so I wasn't going to call him. I called the general DVC sales line and asked to speak to another guide. I also expressed at this point that I would really like to be assigned another guide because we've had some bad miscommunications with my original guide. I was transferred over to speak to the next available guide on the phone, and they were very nice. I explained the situation. They said, honestly, this was going to be very tricky to execute because we had already signed the contract and they didn't have experience adding Magical Beginnings on afterward. It's always something that they've done before you sign the dang contract. Plus, we had already made a payment, and a pretty substantial one. We didn't only do 10% plus closing costs. We did a pretty big payment for that May 2nd payment. So yeah, it was complicated. I can certainly appreciate that this exact scenario was complex, probably not something that guide had ever dealt with before. So they very politely said, I don't know exactly what to do right now. Let me find out and get back to you. I would rather, make sure I know how to proceed than tell you something that ends up being false. So fantastic. That is what I love to hear. I eventually got past their leader, which again is fine with me. I think that second guide I spoke to probably had appointments all day to make those sales. Before I get past that second guide's leader though, my guide actually called me. I believe the second guide I spoke to just pinged my original guide and said, I have the situation, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is kind of a two-pronged problem. It's one, I want Magical Beginnings, but two, I already made a reservation with 2023 points and I need to switch those to 2024 points. My guide called me and led with the second situation in terms of borrowing, at which point he expressly said that because I had an August use year, I would not be able to borrow 2024 points until August 1st, 2023. At this point, I'm just beyond done. I told him straight up that is false. He says, well, let me double check and call member services. I said, I don't need you to double check. I know that you're wrong. And this is not the first time you've been wrong about policies with me. And again, I called the general sales line to speak to a guide that wasn't you specifically and asked to be assigned to another guide. So we part ways, finally, thank God. After a little bit of time, the second guide's leader does call me and works some magic. It takes a bunch of calls back and forth. They have to call leaders over at member services, blah, blah, blah. I'm very grateful for this leader's effort, honestly, because I think my situation is fixed. The leader said that my additional one-night reservation at Walt Disney World, those 2023 points will be swapped out for 2024 points, and that they can add an addendum to my contract for Magical Beginnings. This leader absolutely made things right for us, and I'm also pretty thankful for that second guide who was knowledgeable enough to say, hey, I don't actually know how to do the situation. I'm going to pass you off to someone who does know. But in the many phone calls with the leader to sort things out, they also let me know some things that my original guide did not. My original guide told me that on May 16th, we were able to use our points to book villas at Disneyland Hotel. Cool. The leader let me know, though, that May 16th was the day to use those points at all to book any Disney Vacation Club resort. A big factor of this kerfuffle I found myself in was that I wanted to apply Magical Beginnings, but I had already used some of my 2023 villas at Disneyland Hotel points. Apparently, I wasn't even supposed to be able to book anything yet because this happened on, May 5th or 6th or something, definitely not May 16th. Had my first guide told me that these points wouldn't be eligible for booking for anywhere on May 16th, I never even would have tried to add on that first night. The leader definitely said that a lot of people have been able to do things that the system was supposed to stop them from doing, like using these points before May 16th. So, system errors aren't anyone's fault, but that knowledge could have been communicated to me in our prep call. Another factor that didn't end up affecting my one add-on night, but definitely could have depending on our vacation plans, is that the leader said that you aren't actually supposed to be able to use the Villas at Disneyland Hotel points for any time before Villas at Disneyland Hotel opens. My planned trip to Walt Disney World is after September 28th, 2023, so that wasn't an issue for me. But for example, if I had a trip in July and I wanted to add a day or two with my new points, apparently you're not supposed to be able to do that. My original guide also didn't tell me this, which I think is a pretty big thing to omit. I've just had a lot of issues with the guide that I was assigned to. Here's some of the big ones. He straight up didn't tell me about Magical Beginnings ever. I just had to find out about that for myself, which again, that's over $3,000 in savings, so thanks, dude. He definitely didn't communicate the May 16th booking restrictions correctly, and he never said anything about resale restrictions, which I think is kind of shady. And probably my biggest complaint about him is that he so confidently presents information that is just not true. So he falsely told me about this 100-point minimum purchase in order to start qualifying toward membership benefits, which didn't actually end up affecting me, but it was a big deal. It's a big deal to lie about a policy like that. And he also totally made up borrowing rules that are completely false. He just has an overall lack of attention to detail, both for the purchase, but also his general job and duties, and explaining to folks like the policies that go around using your vacation points. I am well aware that I know an above average amount about Disney Vacation Club policies. I don't think everyone comes into these conversations knowing as much as me, so it's easier for me to call out folks that are saying things incorrectly. But I think that's a big problem, because presumably he's telling a lot of other people the same junk information and they may not know better. Your guide makes a really big difference, and I was shocked to find the quality of an 8+ year guide to be so low. After him not even knowing the borrowing policy, I really snapped and I'd had it. So at this point, I had asked 4 times to be assigned to a new guide to various people I had spoken to. I was very consistently told this isn't common practice. It's not something they do unless a guide leaves, and then you don't have a guide assigned to you at all. I understand this in principle, but again, you're talking about a tens of thousands of dollar purchase, and if your client is asking for a new salesperson, I feel like you should just honor that. The last time I spoke with the leader, I did ask who is my assigned guide, and they said, yeah, it's still the first person you talked with. And I said, can it please not be? And the leader said that they will process it to make it the second guide I talked to, the guide that reports to that leader. So I hope that's true. But wow, it was really hard to be assigned a new guide. I don't think it should take that much self-advocacy. Throughout this whole process, really, especially with my first guide, there was so much self-advocacy involved. The amount of times I had to press him about the supposed 100 minimum point buy-in to start qualifying for membership extras was like 3 or 4 before he really started to actually look into it. Overall, in the end, I am getting what I want. I've got my contract, we've got the points, we've worked out the one additional night at Walt Disney World to be 2024 points instead of 2023. I should get Magical Beginnings added on. Okay. But honestly, it was very confusing to navigate, and like I just mentioned, there was so much self-advocacy required and a lot of prior knowledge required. My first guide is definitely confusing other Disney Vacation Club potential buyers, and I think that's so problematic. I don't really understand how Disney Vacation Club is okay with guides so confidently spewing misinformation about policies like this. They are recorded lines, so the calls are on record, and I also have written emails of some of this stuff, and this is not okay. Truly, at this point, I am unsure if my original guide is just lazy and misinformed, or if there is some slight malice in his motives. The 100-point min buy-in, for example, better for him if I buy 100 points than 50 points. And not telling me about Magical Beginnings presumably saves him a little bit of time in drafting that first version of the contract to send over to the QA team. The second guide I spoke to definitely seems better. Like I said, they at least took the approach of if they didn't know something, they were going to go ahead and figure out how to proceed instead of just spew whatever they think is right. I certainly appreciated them not confidently falsifying information just to get me off the phone. But honestly, I hope to never speak to a DVC guide again. I just want the saga to be over. I don't anticipate ever buying direct again. I don't see why I would need to. So yeah, this was very unpleasant. I don't want to do it again. I would rather not get confused again. It reminds me so much of having to advocate for myself in the US healthcare system, which for anyone who doesn't have significant health problems or anyone who has healthcare outside of the United States, that's a very, very bad comparison. That is definitely not something Disney and Disney Vacation Club are striving to be compared to. It's like the low of the low. But yeah, big thumbs down for me overall. Like I said, I got the product I wanted in the end, but actually as of the day I'm recording this, Magical Beginnings is still up in the air. I still haven't seen that contract addendum, so get a little nervous about that. Definitely would not recommend the first guide I was assigned to. Honestly, don't know if I would recommend buying direct. And in a vast majority of other cases for other products, if similar things would happen, I just would not have even purchased. I was very committed to buying this Villas at Disneyland Hotel contract, which worked out for DVC in the end. But yeah, if this was something else, like I just would have given up. It's just really not worth the hassle or the effort. And I posted bits and snippets of this online here or there, and I'm really, really sad to hear how many other people also have had DVC guides who are just awful. Again, they're confidently falsifying information about basic policies like borrowing and banking. And Magical Beginnings was news to a bunch of people I spoke to as well. It seems pretty straightforward to me that the DVC guide should have like a checklist of things to go over when you're speaking to a potential client, whether they're new or returning, about the contract, promotions, restrictions, relevant policies, any of that kind of stuff. And also, they just need to know the basic policies. It's just very inexcusable, in my opinion. I'm glad that there are people like me out there on YouTube and Twitter and blogs or whatever that do understand the policies and are doing our best to spread correct information. But at the end of the day, Disney Vacation Club should not be relying on randos on the internet telling people how borrowing points works when your DVC staff should be doing that correctly. Like I said, the second guide I talked to seemed a lot better, but I didn't talk to them for very long, and their leader definitely seemed better, but overall, very dismayed by this whole process. If you've gone through a direct purchase with Disney Vacation Club, I would love to hear your experience and opinions about your DVC guide. And also, if you've ever changed DVC guides, was that hard for you? I was very surprised at the pretty intense pushback I got at my multiple requests to have a new guide assigned to me. Nothing in life ever goes perfectly, but I certainly was not expecting this to be such a saga. This is a simple exchange of goods, but an expensive one, right? I'm giving you $30,000+ to access your product. All I really ask for in return is transparency and truthfulness. And wow, did we really miss the mark there. I hope you found this helpful, or at least entertaining or enlightening or something. Mostly, I really hope you don't have to go through anything like this with a DVC guide. I'm still kind of in disbelief. Don't know if you can tell through the internet, but the whole thing is just a bit shocking to me. Thanks for listening. May the rest of your day be magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Does PhD.